Well, you guys saw all the good stuff coming on the next release, so we're done, right? It was already all there. But actually, we're going to get into detail on some of those items. Again, thank you very much for joining us. With me, I have Sri Neve, who some of you may already know. Sri is our VP of Product Services, and he's here with us, and he's going to do half of the webinar with me. We also have Rob Wood, our VP of Sales, moderating. And again, please feel free to ask any questions. First things first, I hope everyone can hear me. Hope the video is clear. Let us know. We can start shutting off the video feed, hopefully if the bandwidth becomes an issue. You will find this webinar later on www.clicdata.com webinars. So if you can't make it throughout the whole thing, you can go back and check out the last piece there, or you can just forward it to colleagues. And again, if you have any questions or comments during the webinar, please make sure you put them through on the moderator channel there, and Rob will make sure to bring those to our attention. And as well, you can follow us on Twitter, ClicData Webinar, hashtag ClicData Webinar. So with that, I like just to quickly go over today's agenda. We're going to talk about some big changes on the UI, the reason why we've made them, and where is that going to take us in the future, the login page and customization of the login page. Talk a little bit about account settings, the API securities. We're reshuffling the menus again, and we just want you, not again, it's actually the first time in a long time, but we're reshuffling this again because of we need space for some of the stuff that you've asked us to build. So this is important for the next release coming out Tuesday in approximately 5-6 days. We've put the release notes already just about a week ago. Hopefully you had the time to take a look at it. We send the release notes several weeks before, or at least the alerts, and then closer to before we go into QA mode, we send a release note. So hopefully you had a quick peek at that. If not, let me know after the webinar. Shoot me an email. I'll make sure that you're getting those emails. So again, we only send those emails to account administrators of ClicData to alert them of the upcoming improvements. Related to the UI change, we have new explorers and navigation, the ability to assign CSS classes to widgets, which I can go quickly through that. That will allow you to create global styles that you can apply to all the dashboards. And the data loader portable edition as well, which we did for one of our key customers, and we thought it was such a good idea that we now made it part of the regular build cycle. And then Shree's gonna take over and talk a bit about improvements across the board, from the data preview to the dashboard, and a few other things such as the new widget, the sand key diagram, which also comes with a wheel dependency visualization as well, improvements to query designer, and so forth. So without further ado, and to get right into it, so let's talk a little bit about the entire UI design, the change that we're putting through, and the reason why. There's an entire new framework, development framework that we're putting in place. And the reason for this new framework is one of taking advantage of new improvements that have been done in UI development, specifically for the web. It provides us a more consistent design for us. It also will accelerate our development substantially, because we're starting to build component-based UI blocks, which allow us to copy and use them. Whereas before we were copying and pasting code, now we're no longer copying and pasting code. We're actually embedding these objects. So if we have improvements, to do, we do it on at one level, and it affects the whole platform, which allows us to fix bugs in a more consistent way, resolve issues. We can also improve performance in a more centralized approach, and we can use these components in building new screens and new functionality. This framework is a combination of mostly front end with back end. It will also make the entire application lighter and slightly faster to use. That entire framework is being done not in one shot. It's being done on different modules at different times. And even within modules, you'll see some screens will be done in the new framework. Almost, you will probably not perceive it at times. You will look in many times the same, but the code behind it has been changed. But the biggest change that we have in this release is this new menu. Whereas before we had a dark bar at the top of the screen with the drop-down menus, we've taken into this one single drop menu with all the different menu options. And you've seen here a screenshot. This is the design screenshot. You'll see a lot of gray areas here, reports, Explorer, service packages, a few roles. These are upcoming modules that we're working on that will actually release throughout the next quarters. But the bottom piece as well, the configuration, account, API, subscription, this used to be on the top right menu under your avatar account settings. So we've moved some of that stuff. The API and usage metrics is actually now in that section. And by the next release, the rest will follow. So again, this menu can be accessed from anywhere. That's another advantage is this ability to access this menu from anywhere, which now leaves us with this entire area here available for you, in fact. And that was the entire point, is we've got a lot of requests that, in a white label fashion, or even not in a white label fashion, that you want to create your own menus and control the content of that main page for your viewers. So what we're doing now is we're revamping the menu system that we used to have, which used to be just a single drop down, to have actually a multi-layer, multi-level menu system that you can customize in any color you want with the little separators, and you have menus, sub-menus. And when you click on different menus, you will now get, basically sub-menus that drop down. And then you click on this and you can either display dashboards or display any other type of content that you like. Custom content, in fact. So you can create up to 3 levels of menus. So would be the first one. This is your second one. And then you could even have a third one, which would be a little arrow that would pop up a last menu here. As I mentioned before, we will allow for custom content. So some of those contents could be other HTML pages or even PDFs, things that normally your browser would be able to display. So you can get a little bit creative for your own situation here. Obviously, binders and dashboards will be there. And later on, reports will also be able to be displayed through this menu. I mentioned this before, but I want to reiterate, one of the reasons why this new menu is also great is because it's now accessible from anywhere. Whereas before you had to get out of the editor, the dashboard editor, or the data editor to access one of the main menu options, we now have that button anywhere. So you can quickly open a new tab just simply by going to the top menu, doing a expanding it, and doing a right click, open a new tab, and boom, you're there already. So it's very, very quick to access without even exiting your current your current screen. This saves obviously some precious clicks, and hopefully it'll make your life easier accessing the menus very quickly. The new login is also part of this refactoring. You will see first thing on Tuesday as you log in that it's no longer a centralized kind of window in the center of the screen as it is today, but it's rather a panel bar, a little more modern. But we took the advantage to also include a lot of the feedback that we got from you, from our customers, that you wanted to style it better, not only the background, but other things. So we are now, the first phase of this is to actually put our own login screen, obviously, and to ensure that it works with white label. So the logo, but yeah, the idea that you'll be able to, and unfortunately, this is a PDF kind of presentation. You don't get to see the multitude of variations you can do here with your own logo, replacing this. You have control of the logo. You have control of what it says here, this title, the background color of this panel, the color of this text. You can control every aspect of this, except obviously the layout of this, which is, there's a section here which you can make transparent if you'd like, so it would disappear in essence, and be taken into the background. So a lot of different variations that can make this truly your own platform here. We introduced back in 2018 4 different themes of the application. It was the first attempt of attempting to give the application a bit of styling. Unfortunately, the way the application was done initially, we did not take the time to go to every single element to make sure that you could tailor it. So we've taken a different approach, one that is now very common in the industry, which is going to at least 2 themes, a light one and a darker one. It can ease the eyesight quite a bit if you have a darker background, and we don't make the text absolutely pure white. We make it a lighter, just off shade of white, so it doesn't hurt and burn you in your eyes. So it could be actually very good, taking into consideration, of course, that your dashboards are independent of this theme that you pick here. This is just for the application, and in future we may have other theme that will change the whole appearance of the application. So this is actually now a possibility. We're now releasing it, the ability to switch the themes, just so you know that it is coming up, that individual users can switch themes on a personal basis once we enable this in the new user settings profile. As I mentioned before, this is the menu as you see here on the right. This is what you will see on Tuesday morning. We have a new account at the bottom there, a new account settings section where you have API and usage metrics. These are the first 2 elements to go into this menu. They used to be located in my company settings here. And there used to be this option and this option, and now you will no longer encounter them there. You will find them here. The next step in this would be the remaining items we have here. All these items, security and domain and emails and history, all these will also move over here. The work is in progress and will be released in the next release, where you'll be able to actually change all these settings over there. Again, the reason for this change is some of these screens, specifically the single sign-on and some of the other items, need more space, and this tiny pop-up here is kind of reaching its limits in terms of capacity there. It also makes the interface more consistent, that you'll find all the elements are actually now in one menu system, except your personal preferences, the user preferences. Okay, that will always remain underneath your avatar. So this is what it looks, the new account configuration screen. Again, this will be available either mid-release or just at the next release, where you will see all the different options: name, branding, header, notifications, login screen. This is where you will be able to customize fully that login screen, history, domain, and so forth. So this is how it's going to look. You can come in and change your account settings and hit save right at the top. You will see as well in some screens, and some of you may have noticed this already on a couple of screens that we've beta tested over the last 2 months. You've seen that we have a new, what we call an Explorer, which is basically this panel here on the left side with the rows of data, whether it's dashboards or objects or whatever we show here on the right side. We call this internally, it's our kind of like a file explorer in Windows, where you see the list of all your data sets or your dashboards and so forth. We now have this new style. You no longer have the black bar at the bottom when you select multiple items. A black bar would used to open up at the bottom with the different options, however many. That no longer happens. What happens is you have all the options right at the top, right beside all the other buttons. This removes this extra area of moving the mouse to, exhausting mouse trips and wearing down your mouse. So you have everything here close to all the other buttons: the import, the export, the filter, adding new, as well as you have now this nice little drop down button which allows you to pick immediate actions such as I just want to delete this, I want to properties, I want to go to the edit mode. Okay, so this is the change on the Explorer item. You also see this handy thing where we're starting to sprinkle these across the application where we have teams and menus because it's related to users. We will pick 2 or 3 or sometimes 1, I guess, items which we feel are common related actions so that you can move quickly. You don't need to go back to the menu. You can just go through here. And you will also notice an increase in performance on how we render the row of items, specifically when you have a lot of items such as data clones, data sets, data views, and so forth. So with that in mind, I'm just going to take a little pause here just to see. I'm sure somebody would have stopped me by now if there was anything I need to look at. So I'll just keep going. I'm going to talk about CSS class. You will see on the dashboard editor when you open a widget, all widgets now will have the CSS class box here. Now, for those of you that don't know what you can do with that, some of you may have added custom CSS to your dashboards. Maybe you want to change the font, or one of the fonts that we don't have, or you have custom colors that you'd like to replace in more than one widget. What you can define now is individual classes for widgets or the same class and apply a global rule that applies to all the widgets in one go. This is very handy. You don't no longer need to find out the ID of the widget, of the visualization widget. You can go define a class here on each widget that you create, and then just apply a rule that applies to all of them. And again, if you need more information on this or what you can do with custom CSS and the CSS classes, again, reach out to me, book some time with me. I'd love to showcase a little example of that. I believe we also have a webinar coming up on just that before the end of the year. So, so there we go. The Windows data loader. We had a request to have the data loader installed multiple times on the same server or same machine. Now, this was a very specific request, but we thought it was such a good idea. And the reason why it's such a good idea is because it would actually make it like our Unix data loader, because you can just copy the files into a folder. You don't need to install it in Windows. You can just create a folder anywhere and run it right off there without having an installation of Windows, uninstall. It's not a Windows service. It's a very easy process to get up and running with the data loader. Some people are liking, are testing it out. They don't want to go through the installation. Windows is installing stuff. So what are the two differences really between the standalone versus the Windows service? The Windows service is actually quite nice because it installs itself. It runs as a Windows service when the machine is on, even if you're not logged in, it is running in the background. But you can only have one because it's an installation. Windows only lets you install the same application once. So you can only have one on one server. It can allow you to connect to a multitude of databases, but only one data loader can be executed. With the standalone and the portable edition, you can actually have multiple data loaders with different security tokens running on the same server and potentially only individually having access to different databases. Again, one data loader, even if it's a standalone, can also connect to multiple databases. There's no difference in functionality, but the difference is that you can have multiple of them running at the same time. Again, this could be useful. As I mentioned before, it's also easier to install and to delete if you're moving machines, etc. And with that, I believe I've exhausted my piece here. So I'm going to I'm going to let Sri and in the cool background take over.
Thanks, Thermal. Hey, everyone. I hope you enjoyed what Thermal has shown, and there's a lot of new features coming around. We have been working on this release for quite some time, just trying to incorporate everything that we hear from the customers, understand what are the requirements, and make sure we prioritize what you guys are asking and present it to the engineering team so that they can develop it. Just before I talk a few other improvements that we have done, I just want to let everyone know if you have any feedbacks, if you have suggestions on how we should improve the application, please do write to us at support@clicdata.com. We love to hear your feedback. We enjoy understanding what the customers want, and we translate that back to the engineer, and we hope that we can get to everyone's request as soon as possible. In terms of the new improvements that we're doing is, we haven't worked on the data preview for a long time. Initially, our data preview was limited to 200 rows. And what we've done with this is we have worked on a new component, which is not only faster, but it also allows you to scroll more than 200 rows. We've had a lot of customers asking that they would like to see on the preview, once you create new items on the view, once you add transformations on the view, you would like to see the entire data if possible. And that's the first version that is out there. And we will be improving it in future, trying to add more elements to it, maybe a sorting at a later stage so that you can also sort right on the preview rather than having to sort it on the dashboard side or export it and sort it. So we'll continuously work on improving this. The next thing we worked on is we have increased the cap of the dashboard size from 4,000 to 5,000. Initially, the dashboard was always capped at 4,000. And we noticed the trend that there were few customers who wanted more space to display it on larger TV screens, to display it on events that are happening across, presented on a PowerPoint, or just presented on a projector. So we've increased the cap to 5,000 so that you have more space. You can have larger widgets, or you can have larger views. The next thing we have added on is better visibility logic. A lot of our customers have been using invisible widgets, and what we've done with these invisible widgets, before they used to load irrespective if they were referenced by other objects or not, which used to take up dashboard performance time, which used to take more server calls. So with this new logic, what we're doing, we're hoping that we'll reduce the load times, we'll improve the dashboard performance, and invisible widgets, which are not referenced by any other objects, will not be loaded until required. So you would see, if anyone is using invisible widgets, you would definitely see some sort of an improvement on the dashboard performance side. The next big feature that we're coming out with, which I absolutely love, is the Zoom copy and download. We've heard your request. A lot of users wanted to download specific widgets, not the entire dashboard. You want to share the dashboard with your users. The users are on a live link, and you want them to have the ability to filter a specific chart, filter a specific table, and export it, rather than exporting the entire dashboard. And we have now this option on the interactions where you can enable Zoom, you can enable copy, you can enable image download. So your end users who are accessing this report, they can just go ahead and copy that particular dashboard or export that particular chart from the dashboard rather than having to export the entire dashboard. The next one that we're coming up in terms of the improvement is Teams. We've always had the ability to import users, but we noticed a trend that a lot of clients have been using Teams extensively, and managing teams manually is good up to a certain point, up to 10, 15 teams. But when it comes to importing hundreds of teams, assigning users to hundreds of teams, assigning parameters to hundreds of teams, a manual approach does not just work. So we have now the option to import teams using an existing data set. You can upload a data set which contains a team name, which contains the parameter IDs. Once uploaded, you can use that data set to create the team within ClicData. So you don't have to manually create teams anymore. It's entirely automatic using that data set that you have uploaded. The one that I'm most excited about, I think, is the Query Designer. We have worked extensively on the Query Designer in the past 6 months. You might have noticed improvements in the Query Designer over the course of time. Initially, it did not have the option to add functions, make formatting, beautify objects. We've already added that over the last 6 months, but now we've gone a step further and we have introduced something which allows you to validate queries. You're writing in a query and you want to check if the query is right. You want to check if the syntax is right. If you're using macros on ClicData, you want to check if the macros are evaluated correctly. Now we have a checkbox that you can use on the dashboard design, on the query designer itself, and that will allow you to validate if your query that you have written contains any error, is it successful. Here are a few screenshots on what a good query would look like. Once you click on validate, it will show you on the right-hand side, you can see there's a green bar at the top which says that the query is good. And on the left-hand side, there's a query which was not good. And if you click on that particular check, it will show you exactly what was not good in that query and highlight you to that particular region so you can go ahead and make changes to that query. The last new diagram, we've been coming on with new charts every now and then. Once every 2 months, we come up with new charts. We have released scatter plots in the past. We've released the Gantt chart in the past. If you haven't checked that out, please check that out. In this particular release, we are coming up with a Sankey diagram. A Sankey diagram is great flow diagram. It allows you to visualize different flows of information happening from one medium to the other medium. If you are into distribution and you want to see which distribution centers are exporting to which distribution center, if you're importing something, you want to see which countries are exporting to which particular country, which country is importing the most. A Sankey diagram would allow you to create that flow diagram, which lets you see the flow of information from one point to the other. And the widths are proportional to the values. So we already have that information. We already have this on ClicData now in the coming release. Give it a try. It's a first beta version. Let us know what you guys think about it. If you have any feedback, send that over to us, and we'll be happy to take this feedback into consideration. With that, I'm going to pass it on back to Thelmo. I think, Thelmo, it's you talking about data flow and the new upcoming features.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to go back a little bit to the Sankey diagram. The Sankey diagram, as Sri was mentioning, does show flow from one node to the other, always forward flow. But the wheel dependency is on the same widget. It's a property setting. You just change that. And that actually allows you to see reverse flow between nodes as well. So another great visualization. It's kind of a two-in-one deal because it's the same component, and it makes sense in that context. I know that if you were here last year on our webinar in the winter time, the winter webinar, which we didn't have a cool intro video, unfortunately, but we'll make it. We did tell you, and we stated we commenced development of a new way of managing views and flows and fusions and merges. It's called the data flow. It's still called the data flow. I want to give you a quick update on that. We have a very cool designer, such a cool designer that we're actually thinking of implementing some of that into other screens, including the dashboard designer. We have a little mini map, kind of overview map, as you can see at the bottom left of the designer. We finished and completed the design and the back-end piece in Q1, Q2. We continued to work on the designer piece, and we've added our first 4 nodes. And now we're on Q3. We are now busy adding all the remaining nodes and finishing touches on the properties of the existing nodes. And we're aiming at just post-summer for at least at the very minimum an alpha release, if not a beta release by September, October. So we're very excited about this feature. We just want to do it right. There's a lot of stuff that goes in here. This is going to help us quite a bit. In all kinds of different ways, not only in you managing your data flows and creating multiple output tables, but also moving into the future by adding machine learning statistical analysis nodes into this flow. It's going to offload a lot of the database work that we now do in real time, because the flow will then have the capacity to run as a batch process in the background. So very excited about this. I just want to let you guys in on that and make sure that you're aware of the work we're doing there. The engineering team has been doing a phenomenal job. We took the opportunity to implement this using the new framework as well. So it's kind of a large effort across the board. The second most requested item was the data form widget. The design has been finalized in Q2. We did not have the opportunity to advance as much. We did a prototype back in Q1, but the design was completed in Q2, and we are starting development in this quarter. And we're hoping this one is going to go a little bit faster. And now that we have a solid understanding of what we're trying to do here, and we're going to also have an alpha release in Q4, if not a beta one. Other things we have, we're cooking here. The indicator card widget is being developed. A new connector, Sugar CRM. Now, this is not really a new connector. We do have a Sugar CRM connector. This is now a revamped one, much faster, and using our own proprietary technology as well. New connector Snowflake. We have actually, I was told today, the first alpha out. So we're good to go on Snowflake for the next release, so in 3-4 weeks. So very excited about to see what people will do with the Snowflake connector. I know Snowflake is an interesting large-scale data warehouse platform, so it makes total sense for us to connect to it. We have something called the Explorer. This is going to be a little bit of a surprise, but for you that are attending or seeing this webinar offline, the Explorer is a quick way to explore your data without having to create views or in the future data flows. The data flow is going to be a great component, but you have to process the full data flow to see the end piece. So it does no longer make it ideal for a data exploration. So with this Explorer, you're able to group, sort, filter. Those are the three basic operations, any data set you have in a more efficient way, almost like in a pivot way. And the reporter module is a very basic column-based reporting that allows you to format the columns. For those folks still looking at PDF reports in a very form-based, columnar-based format, the reporter is going to be the thing for us. And we'll probably have the design started in Q4 of this year for both reporter and Explorer. These are just some of the big highlight items that we have. We have a lot of other small items. As you can see in this release, we have maybe 2 or 3 larger items, but then we have approximately 10 to 12 medium-sized improvements, and then we have had over 100 improvements in terms of smaller items, be those small issues and bugs, all the way down to usability, where we find that there's better ways to do certain clicks and flows. And with that, and being 35 minutes into this webinar, I'll leave it up to the questions.
We do have a few questions, so we do have 5 minutes, and I want to take some of the questions that we have. And just want to let everyone know, if we don't end up taking all the questions, I'm going to pick 2 or 3 questions here and let them talk about that. Feel free to send us at support@clicdata.com. We can take on the remaining questions there. We'll get back to you there. So the first question, Tomo, we have is regarding the new menu bar. Can we add custom links to other HTML pages outside ClicData on that new menu bar?
Absolutely. Now, let me prefix that with some technical mumbo jumbo, basically, which is the fact that we will allow any menu items. You can put any URL in there or any media item that you have loaded into ClicData. So yes, you could put a URL such as www.google.com, and you would expect Google search to appear here. However, there's something that website technology and browsers obey today, which is cross-site access. Obviously, if somebody was to build a page like ours and put Google search engine here, this would undermine Google's respectability, let's say, of fair play, and all of a sudden you're now serving Google services through your own website. Not only that, it poses a security risk, because if you remove the menu here and the user does not know that they're actually on your website thinking they are actually on Google, it is a huge security risk. So this cross-site security is something that we cannot overcome. If the target website that you try to put through here does not allow you to embed their content on our portal, then there's very little we can do about it. It's the browser. All the browsers must obey those rules if they're modern browsers. And it's the website that puts a special code to say, do not embed me, I will not allow that. This is, for example, when you embed our live links, our dashboard, you can do that anywhere. You can do that on your own website or your own application. We don't have that on our live links, but certain websites will not allow for that. So always check with that. Just don't assume that you can put any URL here, because some URLs will just refuse to be displayed inside what we call these frames.
Thanks, Thelmo. And I'll take on another question, and I can answer that, Thelmo. The question goes, is there an ability to remove columns from the data preview on the roadmap? Right now, we do have the ability to remove columns from the data preview already. We have something called a schema. So when you have uploaded a data onto ClicData, you can go to the properties, you can go to the schema, and you can already hide certain columns that you don't want on the preview. And I understand this question is kind of twofold, more on the data side and also on the dashboard side when you have interactions. And if you double click on a particular chart, can you hide specific columns there? So the data side, it can be handled right now. And on the dashboard side, this is something we will be working on at a later stage. Right now, when you double click a particular chart, it displays the column as it is on the data side. And we will be working on a feature later on to have the ability to pre-select columns that you want to be visible once interactions are done. This last question I'll take in is, are there any plans on binder navigation or making changes to the Binder tab navigation plan, Thelmo?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. We have not done it yet. We figured you guys were going to be taxed already with a lot of change management for your own users. So we're taking that piece slowly. But today, if you go to the dashboards Explorer, your menu will actually read here dashboards and binders. It is our intention, though, in a future version to split those out, that binders actually come separate from dashboards. And the reason for that, again, is just one of cleaning the Explorer to ensure that the options on each row, are the same for each type of object. So if it's a dashboard and you click edit, you would expect to have an editor of the dashboard, but binders don't have an editor. Binders do not have an editor, so it does not make a lot of sense to have to be on the same Explorer. They also have different features, so we're going to split those up into its own navigation and its own menu for that reason. But not on this release. It'll be in the next release. And again, if you have any issues with that, again, I'm open to hearing any feedback on that and potentially looking at alternatives or a better way to do it.
I think those are the questions we'll take on considering the time. Thelma, anything else you want to add? Or
no, I just want to thank the whole team. I know I've asked many of our own team, because this was such a big release, as you put it, Sri. I wanted to thank everybody on the team for the effort, on the product services team for the testing and the feedback and making sure that we're meeting what the customers are asking. And again, for the patience of the customers for some of these features, we're super excited about this. Just this new framework and this new menu system is now opening up a whole world of opportunities for us of development. Believe it or not, screen space is precious in some of our applications. So we're super excited. So thanks to the entire team across the board at ClicData, and thanks to the customers that participated and kind of gave the feedback and even helped us test some of these and have asked for some of these features. Again, I'm always available if anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Thelma. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks a lot for attending.
All right. Thank you.